Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back another video today, and today the Houston Texans play the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football at 7:20, and we're going to be previewing the matchup for the Houston Texans. I have been watching the Houston Texans since 2017. I've really been a Texans fan my whole life. I think I went to my first Texans game at like 4 or 5 years old in like 2011 or 2012, something like that. But then start watching them until 2017. Last year, I'd probably say was my favorite year, as watching the Texans. But there was one big complaint I had last year. And I talked about it over and over again as the Texans continued to get better and better. And my one big, huge complaint last year for this team, it really had nothing to do, well, it did have to do with the team, but they weren't doing anything wrong. It was the fact that this team didn't have enough presence, in national televised games. And I hear people, say so many times, oh, well, they played that last game against the Colts, and that was on, Monday Night Football on a Saturday. That's the craziest thing to say, though. Monday Night Football on a Saturday against the Colts when the Texans clinched the playoff spot. That was the best time to, finally get that national TV game. But that wasn't slotted for the Texans. That was a flex. That was never originally planned. The Texans did not have any original, national television games scheduled, last season. And I know the Texans going into, last season, starting off last year, when, a team as bad as the Texans were, they're not supposed to get national television games. But meanwhile, I do remember the Panthers were getting national television games. It wasn't a lot. I remember it was like at least two. I remember there was a Thursday Night Football game against the Bears, and then there was, funny enough, the Bears, who the Texans are playing tonight, and then there was a Monday Night Football game against the Saints. And there might have been one other for Bryce Young and the Panthers. And look, I know Bryce is the number 1 overall pick. CJ is the number 2 overall pick. Obviously, we know who's the better quarterback now. But back then, I'm fine with the number 1 overall pick getting more light than the number 2 overall pick. But the fact that the number 1 overall pick's getting like 2-3 national television games, and meanwhile the number 2 overall pick's getting none, and he's playing on all 12 o'clock games outside of the last game the season, which was a flex change. That really bothered me throughout the season. The fact that there was none. I mean, the Texans had I think 1 or 2 national television games the year before that with Davis Mills as their starting quarterback. I remember they had a Thursday Night Football game against Philadelphia the year before, and there might have been one other national TV game for the Texans that year, although I could be wrong. So the Texans were getting at least 1 or 2 national television games the years before when Davis Mills or Tyrod Taylor were their starting quarterbacks. But then, last year there was just absolutely none until the last week of the season, which was a flex change. So that's something that really bothered me throughout the whole season. And I'm so glad that week 2 we're sitting here and the Texans are making their home opener, and everyone will be watching this game tonight, because it's not just the Texans. I'm not gonna make this all about the Texans. The Bears are coming in. I really like the Bears this year, and this will be a tough matchup for the Texans because anyone want to talk about how bad Caleb Williams was in his first performance. Look, it wasn't great. They got the win, though. Yes, he didn't throw for 100 yards. But I also think about the fact that there weren't any turnovers. He didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't throw a lot of yards, but he kept the football clean. That's good. And I also want to remind everybody, C.J. Stroud didn't have the best debut last year either for the Houston Texans. I do remember he threw for a little bit over 200 yards, but he was playing in a road game against the Ravens, and I know it's a little bit different than playing the tight ends, but you could tell CJ was very nervous in his first game. The offensive line really didn't help him out a lot in his first game either, but you could see as the weeks after his week 1 performance, as the next couple weeks would go on for CJ, he started to get better. In that week 2 game, the home opener against the Colts, you can really start to tell that he's starting to get more comfortable, and it carries on. The Texans then start to get a couple more wins, get their first 2 wins of the season against the Jags and the Steelers. In those first 4 weeks of the season, that's how the first 4 games went for the Texans. The first game against the Ravens, he did some solid things, but he was very uncomfortable. I think you could tell he was nervous. Week 2 in Stroud's second game, he was still a little bit nervous, but he looked better and was looking more comfortable. And then the next 2 weeks in week 3 and week 4, the Texans got their first 2 wins of the season, and he was really taken off. So you can't go one game and say, okay, this guy's going to be terrible. Because C.J. Stroud wasn't great in his first game either. So, I'm excited to see what Caleb Williams can do. If the things go right for the Texans, he'll have to pass the law in this game if the Texans offense gets it going. And they got an exciting team. They got a good defense. The defense looked great in week 1. So it's something the Texans are going to have to, their offense is going to have to get ready for tonight because they got a tough defense, an improved defense as well. And Caleb Williams has a lot of great weapons on this offense. He's got DeAndre Swift as his running back. Also, he's got Khalil Herbert. He's got great wide receivers to throw the ball to. DJ Moore. Might want to note that both Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen are both game time decisions in this game. It's been reported that Rome Odunze should be able to go, and Keenan Allen's gonna, he's gonna wait, and see if he's gonna be able to go in this game. And it has been reported that he is going to be a little bit limited if he does play in this game. But he's got a good tight end in Cole Kmet as well. So he's got a good offense, and it will be a tough matchup for the Houston Texans in this game. I want to go over injuries for the Texans. MJ Stewart will be out in a second straight game dealing with a knee injury. It does say expect to return week 3 next week for the Texans. We'll see what happens there. Dameon Pierce is questionable dealing with a hamstring. He was limited in practice on Friday. We'll see if he plays. Look, Dameon Pierce was terrible in the preseason, but I really liked what I saw from him against the Colts. Went out there and had a couple carries and looked pretty solid. Juice Scruggs, the Texans center, is questionable as well with a groin injury. This could be big. The Texans could really use him out there. He was limited on practice on Friday as well. Jeff Okudah was just recently placed on IR this week, expected to return week 6. That could be worse. Brandon Hill's obviously out for the year. Christian Harris is still on IR, expected to return week 5. Same thing goes for Kurt Heinisch. Dalton Keene out for the year with an ACL injury. Dylan Horton's still on the NFI list. And also, of course, Danico Autry suspended. So that's the list for the Texans on their injury report. Obviously, there could be a couple other inactives we don't know about just yet, as there's still about 12 hours, a little bit less than 12 hours until kickoff. But this will be an exciting one. Now, finishing this off with my predictions for this game, I don't think the Texans have it too easy in this one. The defense, I think, had moments last week where they really struggled. On the deep ball. I think Caleb Williams, we saw in college, he was really, really good throwing the deep ball. That is something I really hope doesn't kill the Texans for back-to-back weeks, because that could be trouble, especially with him having Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet. He has a lot of options. That could hurt the Texans in this game. But I think C.J. Stroud has a better game than we saw last week. He threw for 2 touchdowns and 235, something like that. And you could really say, it was kind of an off game for him. Now, the passing yards were so low just because of the fact that the Texans ran the ball so much. I think Mixon had like 30 carries and 150 rushing yards. I don't know if that continues. I think Mixon's going to get a lot of carries. I could see him getting 20 carries in this game. I don't see him getting 30 carries in this game. I think the Texans are going to go and pass more in this game than they did last week. I would like to see the Texans get Tank Dell more involved, and I see the Texans winning this game. But their defense is going to have to be better, because their defense was terrible last week, dealing with Anthony Richardson's deep balls, deep passes. And That is definitely something Caleb Williams is possible doing or capable of doing. We didn't see in week 1 against the Titans, although it is a tough secondary to make some deep passes on. You got L'Jarius Sneed in the backfield. You got a couple other really solid defensive backs. And I'm not saying the Texans don't have a good secondary, but I'm just saying like that's a tough secondary to go up against with the Titans. But last week the Texans secondary had trouble against Indianapolis. I hope that doesn't come to bite them again this week. I'm going to say that is better. But I still think this is a really close game. I think like a 1-score game. I think the Bears defense kind of keeps in this game. I don't think the Texans offense is going to be bad. I'm going to make a score prediction. I'm going to say the Texans win this game 24-17. Let me know your thoughts on the Texans Bears Sunday Night Football matchup tonight. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and give me your predictions in the comment section. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.